Let's be honest, as a B2B marketer, lots of the cookie cutter content marketing advice you're going to find online is not going to be that helpful. And usually in B2B, your audience is smart. So if you're just churning out generic rubbish, that's going to make you look dumb. And of course, for most B2B companies, the goal isn't quantity of leads, it's quality of leads. So you need to make sure that your content is actually delivering that quantity. Well, it can feel like a lot, but we've worked with tons of B2B companies across finance, healthcare, legal, manufacturing, B2B e-commerce. And we've won tons of awards building immense B2B content strategies that generate huge ROI. Today, we're going to share exactly how we do it. The difference between B2B and B2C content. Fundamentally, B2B and B2C content aren't really that different, but there are some specific hurdles when it comes to producing for B2Bs. The pool of topics that we have to choose from can feel pretty unsexy compared to our B2C counterparts. But remember, you are still selling to a customer. That customer is just part of a business, and they have the same human need to be entertained and interesting that they do when they're buying products for their consumption after work. And they're still going to go through the same process. They're still going to read up about their problems. They're going to read articles comparing different options. They're going to spend time educating themselves about the thing that you're selling, which is why content is the most effective way of convincing potential customers to do business with you. But the goal isn't just creating content for content's sake. It's not even just about creating useful and interesting content, though that is important and we'll come back to that in a minute. The goal of B2B content is to educate the customer about why you are the best option for them. With our B2B clients, we want to make sure that every piece of content we produce for them isn't just educational and informative for the customer, but actually educates and informs the customer on why they should do business with our client. For example, we've got a B2B client that sells packaging to other businesses. Now, really important in a space like this that can feel quite commoditized, that we accentuate why people should buy from this business rather than all of their more generic competitors. So in every piece of content that we produce, we're trying to emphasize things like their excellent customer service and communication levels, the high quality of their products and the fact that they're sustainable, the fast and secure delivery, the fact that they give help and advice on their products, and the flexibility and customization options. So we'll drop these things in throughout any content that we're producing. But we're also looking at each piece of content as a way of guiding the customer towards the purchase. For example, when we first started working with this business, we realized that they had loads of touch points with their potential customers, where potential customers were reading and interacting with maybe 5 or 6 different pieces of content, maybe some of it on the website, some of them via email, some of them on social. And we wanted to make sure that every piece that was being produced was moving the customer further down the line towards purchase. How do you do that? Well, of course, you drop in calls to action that are relevant to the stage in the journey that somebody is at. But you can also automate some of that customer journey nudging using email marketing, which we'll touch on a bit more later on. And by the way, if you're facing pushback from some of your leadership team about the value of content marketing in B2B, we've got a couple of videos for you linked in the description. One is about how to plan your marketing budget, and another is about how to get buy-in from senior leadership team and actually get them excited about what you're doing. All right, now we've talked a bit about the role of content marketing in B2B. Now let's explore some of the different tactics that the content marketing team here at Exposure Ninja use to generate high volumes of good quality leads for our B2B clients, using positioning to stand out. In an ocean full of businesses battling for each potential customer's attention, it can be difficult to stand out. Nowhere is this more true in B2B, particularly in the least sexy B2B sectors. Often you get businesses that are super generic and really boring, and that's great. If you're competing against that stuff, fantastic, because that's loads of low-hanging fruit. What we need to do is figure out how to differentiate you against those through your marketing and through your content. To begin with, this is about picking one aspect of your product or service that really most stands out and represents what customers most want. Now, this might be customer service, it might be the quality of your work, it might be some sort of guarantee, might be reliability. The possibilities are endless, and I can't really diagnose it on this video. So you've got to go meet with your team and figure out, if somebody says, why should we buy from you? What's the best answer to that question? We can then communicate that benefit and that differentiation throughout the content that you're producing. It's really important, of course, that whatever you choose is actually authentic. If it's not, you're gonna have trouble. But let's look at an example. So this is Monzo Business Banking, and the positioning is super clear. It just works, so you can too. Really, really straightforward, and this is such great positioning in the world of business banking. If you ever tried to open or run a business account, it's an absolute nightmare. We had to change from one of the most established banks in the world just because their customer service and experience is just horrible. And this is great positioning for Monzo, because if you've ever tried to work with a large established business bank, it can be really difficult just to run and operate the account. Terrible customer service, really slow communication. So this positioning stands out, and it's a great way to grab market share against more established banks that may be seen as more reliable. The rule with positioning is you sell what you've got. So if you're really well established, you sell the fact that you're really well established. If you're a new upstart, you sell the fact that you're really disruptive and that you're a new upstart. But it's really important that you don't just mention this once and expect customers to just get it immediately. Look at how Monzo repeats this and has other messages that are tied to this. So no monthly fees, free transfers, best British banking provider, 24/7 customer support. Monzo knows what makes it different from more traditional business banks, and this page is basically just highlighting all of those things. They are selling against their competitors. They never mention their competitors, but this entire page is selling against the traditional experience of using a business bank. Now, if you can find a really simple hook like this, fantastic. It may not be so straightforward for you, and you might be tempted to pick out like 5 or 6 different benefits and try and cram them all in. I'd maybe caution against that and see if you can come up with something a bit more succinct that you can dot throughout your content. Now, whilst this isn't necessarily a content strategy, it's one of the key principles of having an effective content strategy. So whilst this isn't a content strategy, it's one of the key pillars of a successful content strategy, because it allows you to continually anchor this message in whatever content you're producing and make sure that it's really clear in your customer's mind why they should use you. And by the way, when you do this sort of exercise, you may realize that your current website isn't really fit for purpose. It's not doing what it needs to do. And sometimes this can be a great opportunity to have a bit of a website refresh. Now, if you need some help with this, the incredible dev team here at Exposure Ninja build websites for our B2B clients, and they're fantastic. They're all designed to generate leads, and they're all well optimized for search as well. You can head to the link on screen or in the description now if you're interested to talk to them. Teach your audience something new. Your content should be useful, genuinely useful to your audience. This isn't just a chance for you to brag about how great you are. Of course, you want to let people know how great you are, but that shouldn't be the main premise of any content that you're producing. You're just subtly adding that in along as you go, like I'm doing in this video. Boom! The best way to do this is to use your content to solve a problem that your potential customer has. Sometimes your customers don't even know that they've got a specific problem, let alone that you are a good potential solution. So we need to work out which type of content you need to produce, and I'm going to show you a couple of examples in just a minute. In general, lots of your content should be free to access, i.e. there's no gate that someone has to go through. They don't have to fill in a form. It's all just free to access on your website. Although you probably will have some gated content in the form of lead magnets, which we'll touch on in just a second. But let's look at some examples first of all. Now, this article from ISMS talks about ISO 27001 versus ISO 9001. Not the sexiest topic, I think you would agree, but this is targeting people who are searching for things like ISO 9001 versus ISO 27001. So there is some intent there because people might need one of these certifications. Now, it's a great guide, it's really informative, it ranks nicely on Google, and you've got calls to action throughout that can nudge people into the funnel for this particular business. So this is a type of content that's designed for someone who knows what their problem is, i.e. they know the accreditation, or they know that there are 2 accreditations and they're trying to choose between them. This example from Slack is a different type of content. This is designed for people who maybe don't know that they've got a problem or don't know that Slack might be a potential solution to their problem. And this is the state of work in 2023 engineering trends. So Slack produces these state of work guides basically to get on the radar of different types of workers. They put this behind an email capture so they're getting the details of the people that are downloading this. And of course, when you download the guide, it talks about the state of work in engineering and happens to mention Slack a few times. So what they're really looking to do is get on the radar of people who maybe haven't thought about how Slack could increase their productivity or their communication between their team, and present Slack as a solution. Which brings us nicely onto Creating lead magnets. So lead magnets are typically your most useful content that get people from just landing on your website and actually get them into your funnel. They get them signing up for something. So think ebooks, white papers, webinars, original studies, that type of thing. Usually a lead magnet is a type of content that people wouldn't be able to get elsewhere because there's something proprietary, or it's in much more detail, or it's packaged in a more useful way than everything else that's out there. If you're just offering a lead magnet for the sort of content that your competitors are giving away free, that's not really a lead magnet, it's just a blog post that no one's ever going to get to. So remember that because you're asking for content details, you need to incentivize people sufficiently to want to give you their contact details to download the lead magnet in the first place. So the quality and the relevance of your guide needs to be super high. For example, here's a lead magnet that we designed for one of our clients during the height of the hybrid work transition. And this was at a point where office managers really didn't know what was going on in the world. They didn't know if their staff were going to be returning to the office or not. So we produced this guide and ran a whole campaign around this to generate loads of attention for our client who works in this space. We then boosted the visibility of this with paid media, with email marketing, promoting it across their website to make this piece of content a real cornerstone of an entire campaign. Now, our recipe for success with this campaign was we decided not to gatekeep the key findings from this study, although we did keep the detail for the white paper that had to be downloaded. We also gave visibility to journalists and people who write about these topics. We used a reputable study company, YouGov, to build credibility for this and to make it a real sort of industry-leading study. And we generated around 70 backlinks from high authority publications about this study. So it's a fantastic campaign for the client because they obviously got leads from people downloading it, but we also used that as a way of boosting the website's visibility overall by building authority and building noise in the industry about the fact that this study existed. Here's another example for a niche accountancy firm that only works with marketing agencies. Now, every year, WOW conducts a survey with their customers to work out what the industry trends are. They then produce an annual guide called the Bench Press Report that shares a bunch of information that no business owner in this space would otherwise have access to. Things like the profitability of their competitors, how much their competitors are charging, what their competitors' retention rates are, utilization. All of these things are really interesting to their target audience. And because WOW has this knowledge, because they've collected it from their client base, they put this behind a gate, so you have to fill in your name and email address. And of course, what do? Then will they promote their services to you because they're an accountancy firm that works with the people who are going to be most interested in the results of this study. Email marketing for nurturing. Email marketing is a massive content superpower, but so few businesses use it effectively. Many B2Bs have some sort of email list which they've kind of compiled accidentally, but they don't really have a strategy for what they're sending out, and it's very ad hoc. They don't really track, measure, and they certainly don't think about sequences, automation, and behavioral targeting. Well, we've taken a lot of the best principles from B2C email marketing and applied them to our B2B clients. And actually, email marketing for B2Bs is potentially more important than from B2Cs. If we think about the average B2B sales cycle being 4 months, it's so important that there's something going on with those prospects during that 4 months that doesn't require your sales team constantly calling and emailing in a one-on-one basis. If you automate a keep warm sequence, then it means your sales team can focus on the new leads coming into the pipeline and also those leads that are most ready to close. All the while, your automated email marketing sequences move those customers steadily further towards the purchase. Now, one of our top tips for B2B email marketing is to make sure that you're properly segmenting your audience. Not everyone on your list needs the same type of emails. So we might segment our clients' lists based on things like which product categories they're most interested in or the size of company that they're from. And that means that you can produce tailored emails for each of these different segments that are more likely to resonate with the people reading them. If you're a B2B e-commerce company, there's absolutely no reason you can't use standard B2C email marketing strategies like browse abandonment and basket abandonment to run email sequences to people who've left products in their carts. But you're also going to want to run dedicated sequences for people who've downloaded a certain lead magnet or inquired about a particular service. For example, for our SaaS clients, we might have a different email sequence for those who've requested a demo versus those who've taken a self-serve demo versus those who've just filled in their email address on a subscribe to this newsletter pop-up. For our packaging client, for example, we have separate sequences for those who've requested a free sample versus those who've downloaded the free packaging guide. Nothing turns people off than getting emails that just aren't relevant for them. It makes you sound so boring and so out of touch. So by segmenting your audience like this, you can significantly reduce the likelihood that you're sending your audience stuff that they're just going to ignore. Repurpose old content. Not everything that you produce needs to be brand new. Sometimes you've had some really great piece that you've produced over the years, which has maybe been forgotten, and all it needs is a bit of a tweak, a bit of a freshen up, a bit of a glow up, and you can get it working again. We update our book about SEO every year. Now, part of this is because SEO changes every year, but part of this is just to create some more excitement and to build a bit of a campaign around it. So we'll then run some ads for it and we'll mention it on our socials and we'll send out an email to the people who've downloaded or bought the book previously with the new fresh updates. Why are we doing this? We're doing this to get on the radars of these people because some of them might be ready to buy SEO or content marketing services. But of course, you can also repurpose this content. So we take some of the topics from this book and we write blog posts about them, or we make videos about them, or podcasts about them. Because once you've done the research, it's a lot quicker to then turn that information into different formats, which are going to appeal to different types of people across different platforms. We need to talk about offsite content too. Content marketing isn't just about the stuff that you publish on your own website. Digital PR can be one of the best ways of getting in front of your target audience, particularly if they don't already know you, whilst also getting your website links that are going to help your ranking on Google. But B2Bs can make two types of mistakes with their digital PR. Some of them only go after massive, huge publications, right? They only really care about getting mainstream media coverage because they think, well, these are going to be amazing, powerful links. That's the only stuff that we care about. Others only go for trade press, much smaller websites, because they think, well, that's where our audience is. Neither is right, neither is wrong. Ideally, you need both of these. Yes, you want the high authority sites to really help your ranking, but you also want those trade publications that might have less authority, but a much higher quality audience. Another mistake is not knowing what types of stories are going to work best with digital PR, and particularly talking about the boring rubbish that the company leadership cares about, like, oh, so-and-so's been appointed as VP of boredom or whatever. That's the sort of stuff that on the whole doesn't really tend to work too well for digital PR. Most publications want to publish exciting news rather than like boring, dry stuff that only the 3 people involved actually care about. So there's 2 ways that B2Bs can do really well with digital PR. Firstly, they can be a bit creative about the types of content that they produce. For example, I remember years ago, we had a client that did racking safety inspections. Now, you can't really get more boring than that. They go into a warehouse and inspect the quality of the racking and how it's all set up to make sure that it doesn't collapse like in those videos that you've seen on TikTok. So how do you get PR coverage about a business like that? Well, what we did is we analysed some fictional workplaces from things like The Simpsons or Game of Thrones or Doctor Who and analysed them from the perspective of a safety inspector. Now, this was lighthearted, it was entertaining, it was fun, it was interesting, and it got some mainstream coverage. For a business that's racking safety inspections, this was extraordinary. The other way that B2Bs can use digital PR is to do their own studies and collect data. If you can get some statistics about a trend or a theme that people are seeing, this can be the type of thing that the media is interested in publishing. Now, here's a creative campaign from Shutterstock where they piggybacked on Game of Thrones, which was really trending at the time, and they had their team redesign the Game of Thrones houses as modern corporations. Now, I don't know anything about Game of Thrones, so I don't know if this is funny or clever, but it seemed to get a really good response from people, and this isn't a huge amount of work. Yes, you need to put some energy into the creative, but once you've done that, you're then running a digital PR campaign about Game of Thrones, which is much easier to do than running a digital PR campaign about stock imagery, which hasn't really changed for a couple of decades. Optimize for search. Of course, producing content on your website is fantastic, but if you really want to get the most leverage from it, you need to optimize it for search. This is going to get it found by people who are searching, who are in market for what it is that you're selling, or who need a solution to the problem that you've identified. Check out this B2B SEO video to find out exactly how we do it. Until next time.